Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Christine Romans in for Savannah this morning. We begin this morning with another development in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Investigators say that DNA evidence from a glove that was found near Nancy's home did not turn up a match in the federal criminal database. The glove appeared to be similar to the ones worn by the suspect seen here on Nancy's surveillance camera the night she disappeared.
Nancy is the mother of our NBC News colleague, Savannah Guthrie. She has now been missing for 2.5 weeks. Even though there was no big break with the DNA, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos tells NBC News the case is far from being cold.
At what point does this become a cold case?
When we run out of leads. And as long as we have the ability to chase a lead, it's not cold. And we have thousands of leads we're looking at, and a dedicated team of literally hundreds of officers and agents from across the state and this country. We're not going to give up. Mm-hmm. We're going to find Nancy, and we're going to find who did this.
Former FBI hostage negotiator Chip Massey is here to help us break down the latest in the investigation. First, let's go to NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz for the latest on the search from Tucson. Liz, good morning.
Well, hi there. Good morning. Well, today marks day 18 of this search. The sheriff tells me that with thousands of tips pouring in, this case is nowhere near going cold. He says that investigators right now are really zeroing in on the DNA found at the home. He was pretty dismissive of the DNA found on the glove, or that glove found 2 miles away, saying that the DNA was not a match with their national database and did not match the DNA found at the home. He said what he's much more focused on is the DNA from the house, which he does say could be the suspects. He says they're now going to turn to genetic genealogy as one of the ways to try to figure out who this person might be or who that DNA belongs to. Meanwhile, we are also learning about some of the other things that investigators are kind of keying in on. One of them is what the sheriff describes as a very unique gun holster that the suspect was wearing. He says that investigators have been taking a picture of that holster and going to different gun shops in the area, asking if anyone recognizes it or knows who may have purchased that gun holster. And NBC also spoke to one local gun shop owner who says that investigators came to his shop with a list of about 24 names and photos asking if they had sold any guns to any of those people. Another thing that the sheriff talked about and acknowledged is that if you look at the surveillance video and you look at it slowly and you kind of screenshot it, you can see that it appears some kind of ring, maybe a signet ring, is showing through the suspect's glove. And he acknowledged that he has seen it and he has passed that along to his investigators to look at. Just one more potential identifying factor about this suspect. Meanwhile, he does say that Google is still, more than a week later since that surveillance video was released, that they are still trying to recover more potential video from Nancy's Nest cameras. He says it's a really complicated process and describes that as like peeling back layers of paint. But he says Google is just one of several companies stepping in to help, and that one of the companies that's reached out pro bono is now going to help them organize and prioritize those thousands of tips pouring in. Back to you.
All right, Liz Kreutz, thank you.
All right, let's dig deeper into some of what we just heard with former FBI hostage negotiator Chip Massey. He's the CEO of the Convincing Company. Chip, thanks for being here. Let's start with the DNA on that glove. It wasn't a hit in the national database, but still a really important clue. What can they do next with the DNA from that glove? And then how does that fit into the whole picture? There was DNA retrieved from the house as well.
Exactly. So any information, any evidence is good information, is good evidence. The fact that we have partial DNA, it's fantastic. Everything can be used to put together a case in court. Everything can be used to help eliminate or focus in on somebody like this.
Beyond the DNA, there's so many other leads that they're looking at here. There's the possible Walmart purchases. There's the search for the pacemaker signal. There's that unique gun holster. We both just had a reaction to that idea that maybe there's a ring underneath that glove. Anything stand out to you as something that could be especially promising or fruitful, or is it all of these things and that they eventually help to paint a broader picture here?
Exactly. And one of the things that they're zeroing in on, they're going to these gun shops. We have evidence through that video that this guy comes in with a gun, and he's wearing a very awkward holster. It's up on the screen now. So they're going to the local gun shops, and they have names. Now, that's fascinating. right? Because these lanes didn't come from anywhere. They didn't pull them out of the
Right.
earth, sky. So they have people, and they're trying to place them together. So they go to the gun shops, and they say, do you recognize this weapon? Is there, can we see the names of the people that purchased? And that holster, very unusual. Again, ill-fitting for the task. Talk about Walmart. Walmart, when they're going through these tapes, Walmart has some of the most advanced surveillance systems that are out there. In any Walmart store, they have between 40 to 100 cameras in there. Now, those cameras aren't just for loss prevention. They're also marketing. They're also looking at consumer behavior, where people linger, what they're looking at, what they're going back to. So imagine this. Our guy, this captor, in a Walmart, looking for a backpack, looking for the clothes that he's wearing. At some point, those things start to connect. We have gun shops where they have to keep records of firearms bought, and we have Walmart now that's able to go through all these records of evidence.
I know it's tantalizing that we know that Walmart was where these came from. Walmart's also the biggest seller of everything in this country, so there's a lot of material to go through there, and it's been 18 days. What does that tell you in your experience about where we go from here? I mean, the sheriff says they're fielding tens of thousands of tips. They haven't identified a leading theory of motive or what happened here. As more time goes on, what does that say to you?
Well, as time goes on, the pressure again goes to the captor. This is where things happen. This, that amygdala hijack. Every day that goes by, every hour, every minute, where he sees that billboard that says, do you know this individual? That picture in that photo, again, of that ring with the raised embossed, that could also be another trigger for this, is that he's going to see that. He's going to go, people know that I wear a ring like this, raised, right? It could be another psychological comfort for somebody like that. He's reaching back to a past. So there's so many different leads that they're following. It is reassuring to me that we're seeing them show up at these gun shops. Walmart's working closely together, and other private entities.
Or someone else recognizes those things. Or someone else says, hey, wait a minute, between the mask and the ring and wait, this could be somebody I know.
Just takes one person.
That's it. To call in and say, I know who this guy is.
Chip Massey, thank you so much. Always great to have you.
A series of strong winter storms is creating major problems on the West Coast this morning. Officials say the race is on to save a group of skiers buried in an avalanche in the backcountry near Lake Tahoe. 15 people reportedly went on the ski trip. 6 have been rescued so far with varying degrees of injury. In California's Sierra Mountains, more than 40 inches of snow fell in 24 hours. It created whiteout conditions and forced road closures along Interstate 80. It's all part of an atmospheric river hitting much of the West Coast, causing deadly accidents and creating dangerous conditions. As part of that same system, rain and gusty winds are expected to intensify across Southern California today. LA is preparing for a siege of wet weather that could last for days. An evacuation warning is in effect for several neighborhoods in the city. Officials warning of possible damaging winds and mudslides.
Now let's get a check on your morning news now weather with NBC meteorologist Melissa McGee. She's been keeping a close eye on that storm out west for us. Melissa, good morning.
And good morning, everyone. That West Coast storm does continue. So a lot of that beneficial snow moving out across areas in the Great Basin and the Rockies. California gets a bit of a break today with just a few scattered showers across the region. But a new surge of energy is going to move in as we head out on our Thursday. So rain and snow will blast California once again tomorrow. Localized flooding is a big concern, making travel fairly difficult across that area. In terms of rainfall amounts up and down the coast, we could find an additional 1/4 inch to about an inch of rainfall across the region. Now, as we move across the highest elevation, we can find an additional 4 to 8 feet of snow for areas across the Sierra Mountain Range. So we'll keep you posted with that. The storm system riding across the northern tier, umbrellas and shovels, that's what you're going to need today as the stationary front continues to move on through, making for slippery spots from Minnesota all the way over into Massachusetts. So let's talk about the snowfall that will be on the way. across portions of the northern Great Lakes. You can see the purple here. That's an indication of snowfall amounts up to 8 inches, little less as we move across areas in upstate New York and central sections of New England. Another day with record highs across much of the plains in the southeast. Dallas today, mild for many, and it's 77 degrees for you. St. Louis, and at 71 degrees. Jet stream builds all the way up to the north, allowing for that warmth to work its way into much of the southeast. Atlanta is 77 degrees tomorrow. We've got 68 in Roanoke, Virginia. We'll start to cool off, though, across the Ohio Valley and the Northeast. Check out Cleveland for the start of your weekend. You'll have a high temperature of 41, but you'll dip down to 29. Back to work next Monday. And for the Northeast, Saturday we'll start it out at 46 degrees, down to 39 on Sunday, and on Monday, that high temperature, just 36. That's a look at your national weather. Now back to you.
All right, Melissa, thank you.
U.S. officials say they are making progress after another round of nuclear talks with Iran. Iranian officials are echoing that sentiment, but both sides say more work must be done to head off any kind of confrontation. All this as separate talks aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine war wrapped up earlier this morning in Geneva. NBC News Washington correspondent Alice Barr has the latest on all of this. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Both sides confirmed the Ukraine talks have now wrapped after about 2 hours today, a full day yesterday. A top Russian official called them difficult but businesslike and said the next meeting will take place soon. President Trump wants these fierce foes to come to agreement somehow by June. Negotiators back at the table for a second day of talks between Russia and Ukraine. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff writing day one of U.S. mediated discussions yielded meaningful progress toward a peace deal, 1 week before the 4-year mark of Russia's full-scale invasion. Ahead of the talks, President Trump urged Ukraine to compromise.
Ukraine better come to the table fast.
While a pair of Democratic senators traveled to Kyiv pressing for ironclad security guarantees against future Russian attacks.
Ukraine needs and deserves a guarantee from the United States, not just European powers.
Witkoff and the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, also joining negotiations Tuesday on a deal to curb Iran's nuclear program. The top Iranian diplomat citing good progress on the path toward an agreement, but cautioning they will not reach it quickly, while Vice President J.D. Vance pointed to roadblocks.
The president has set some red lines that the Iranians are not yet willing to actually acknowledge and work through. So we're going to keep on working it.
President Trump has signaled military action is an option if there's no deal to guarantee Iran won't get a nuclear weapon. The president ordered a second U.S. aircraft carrier to the region before the negotiations and suggested regime change might be the best thing that could happen. Iran has threatened retaliation for any attack, and the supreme leader now says any attempt to take down his government would fail. Back on Ukraine, territory and security guarantees remain the central issues. And while Russia has shown no sign of backing off its demands, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said over the weekend he felt his country was under pressure to compromise from the United States in ways he does not see publicly being exerted against Russia. Back to you, Joe.
All right, Alice, thank you.
All right, there were some terrifying moments on Capitol Hill yesterday when police say an 18-year-old man rushed toward the Capitol with a loaded shotgun. He was quickly arrested and is now facing multiple charges.
Police say the suspect parked near the west front of the Capitol building, got out of his car with that shotgun. He was confronted by officers, ordered to drop the gun, and after complying, was taken into custody.
NBC News political reporter Megan Lebowitz joins us now with more on this. So, Megan, walk us through how this incident unfolded yesterday.
Yeah, it was a really scary scene that unfolded midday yesterday when the man with the gun ran toward the Capitol. Thankfully, no one was hurt. Police were able to take him into custody. I want you to take a listen to how Police Chief Michael Sullivan described how the situation went down.
We had a person exit that vehicle with a shotgun and begin running towards the Capitol. This individual was challenged by United States Capitol police officers and ordered to drop the weapon, which he did comply with. He laid down the weapon and then laid down on the ground and was taken into custody.
Now, I do want to note that Congress was not in session yesterday when this unfolded, but even when lawmakers aren't in the building, there are still plenty of staffers around, so still a very serious security situation, guys.
So the suspect, 18 years old, what more are we learning about him and the charges that he now faces?
Yeah, he's an 18-year-old from Georgia. That's how police identified him. And he's now facing several criminal charges, things like carrying a rifle without a license, having an unregistered firearm, and unregistered ammunition. Now, police also discovered that he had other equipment on him as well. Take a listen to what they found.
This individual had a tactical vest on. He also had tactical gloves. And when we looked in the vehicle, he had a Kevlar helmet and a gas mask in the vehicle. We know where the vehicle was registered to, which was not to him. He had multiple addresses, so we're trying to chase down where he actually came from.
So as you heard, they're still trying to determine more information about the suspect, and they did say yesterday as well that they were trying to determine the suspect's motive because he had not previously been on file with the Capitol Police here.
So, Megan, we know Congress is not in session this week. There were no members present. But just how on edge are police right now, given the surge of threats we are seeing to lawmakers and with the president's State of the Union just coming up next week?
Yeah, so security is always especially high around high-profile events like the State of the Union next week when President Trump is going to deliver that address to lawmakers. But I do want to note here that police regularly train for situations to prepare for the ones like that unfolded yesterday. So Police Chief Michael Sullivan had told reporters yesterday that they have these now routine exercises on a monthly basis in different parts of the Capitol, including there was actually a training exercise just this past summer in that same location where the suspect was apprehended. So you can imagine that this training is still fresh in the officer's mind as they do this on a very regular basis here, guys.
All right, Megan, thank you so much for that.
Another challenge is surfacing for the Department of Homeland Security, which is partially shut down right now because of a fight over ICE reforms. Well, now there are new claims about Strange and Secretary Kristi Noem's relationship with the U.S. Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is overseen by DHS.
Two U.S. officials, including a past and a present Coast Guard officials, tell NBC News that Noem's leadership this past year has created a split between some rank-and-file members who have been motivated by her approach and other senior officials who view it as undercutting their more traditional mission.
NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen has been part of the team reporting on this story. John, good to have you with us this morning. So we know DHS has spearheaded President Trump's mass deportation mandate. What decisions did DHS Secretary Noem make to sort of rattle some of these leaders in the U.S. Coast Guard?
Joe, several decisions, and let me start with this. The Coast Guard, the Department of Homeland Security, the Coast Guard referred all questions to DHS. DHS has denied some of these things that we're reporting, so I just want to put that out there. But basically what you've seen is a shift in prioritization from the Coast Guard's mission, search and rescue, things like that, training, et cetera. You've seen a shift away from those things and toward the deportation effort. So the Coast Guard has been heavily involved in that. A couple of small items here. One was an actual deprioritization message that went out to one air station in Sacramento, basically saying that immigration is the top priority and now search and rescue is much lower of a priority. Narcotics trafficking or anti-narcotics trafficking a much higher priority. And then the biggest thing that really rankled Coast Guard folks early in Noem's administration was back last year, there was a missing Coast Guardsman, somebody had gone overboard. The Coast Guard diverted some of its planes to go use in that search and rescue mission. Our sources told us that Secretary Noem then said that one of those planes, a C-130, had to return to go back to flying migrants around. It left for about an hour. Then some other planes were found and brought back. But the whole issue there was that there was a perception among folks in the Coast Guard that the Secretary was not prioritizing or putting heavy enough emphasis on finding this person who was overboard.
How, John, is the rift between Noem and some of those senior U.S. Coast Guard officials playing out in real time, day-to-day operations? And how has the Department of Homeland Security responded to your reporting, including that morale is, quote, terrible at Coast Guard headquarters?
So, Christine, it's playing out across a number of issues. I mean, we reported on a confrontation between Corey Lewandowski, who is effectively the chief of staff at Homeland Security and very close to Secretary Noem, with a Coast Guard pilot, where the Coast Guard had failed to bring some personal items of Secretary Noem's from one plane to another. When she was switching planes, and Lewandowski tried to fire the pilot midair because he wouldn't turn around to go get those items. The pilot informed Lewandowski that if he did that, they would have to land at the nearest airport, and that the secretary would have to wait a long time for another pilot. So that was resolved temporarily. But in terms of morale, our sources say that it's really low, a split. There are some people, again, who love what Secretary Noem is doing, some people who do not. The Coast Guard's response to this is one of calling it subjective.
Looking forward.
To be fair, it is a subjective view of these Coast Guard folks who think that morale is low. It's hard to measure morale exactly.
Right, exactly. I mean, and looking forward, is there a fear these tensions could continue as Noem continues to focus on these deportation efforts?
Absolutely. There's a fear that it is going to get worse as deportation efforts ramp up. The president has, at times said that he wants to deport millions or tens of millions of people out of the United States. The Coast Guard has become heavily involved in that. They've been involved in the effort to get people to self-deport. There's, millions and millions of dollars floating around the Coast Guard for these purposes. And so you can only expect that that's going to, where that's a tension point, it's going to ramp up. Some of the folks in the Coast Guard didn't really sign up for that. And more to the point, they really feel like some of the things that are the core mission are getting short shrift.
All right. Jonathan, good reporting. Thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate it.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.